every 4 minutes. Deposit, play, and win with Mega Dollar. Big game for big winners.
This week on KBC Channel 1.
Killed him! I killed him! I killed my son!
I came here to smack you across your face!
Yaani umemunifanyia hivi?
Mimi.
Hey, wewe kitu gani mama Keda? Usijifanye mzuri sana. Na najua unipendi.
This is absolutely nonsense.
It's important you get support from your family and before you go to support groups.
If I had met somebody at that time who encouraged me and told me, yes, look at me, I am fine, even you will be fine, it would have given me that much more psych to fight.
I had goals. I still have the goals I haven't fulfilled.
Enyewe mzee yangu alikufa. Mtawachia nani watoto?
When a family member is diagnosed with cancer, the family gathers around them and offers them support. The role that they play in a cancer patient's life is simply undeniable.
It's important you get support from your family and before you go to support groups.
If I had met somebody at that time who encouraged me and told me, yes, look at me, I am fine, even you will be fine, it would have given me that much more psych to fight.
Well, a very good evening to you. You are just in time for Channel 1 News Hour on a day when the government has revealed that at least 75 people have died as a result of the ongoing floods and 7,000 others have been displaced. It's also a day when the National Police Service has released a report that indicates the rate of crime in the country for the past 4 months has gone up by 7%. Those are details that will be coming your way on Channel 1 News Hour. It is also what will be forming the basis of our interactive segment tonight, and we will be seeking to find out from you what should be done to curb the rising crime levels. What should be done, rather, to curb the rising crime levels? The SMS line 22162. Let me know who you are and where you're texting me from. On Twitter, you can talk to us at KBC Channel 1. My Twitter handle at Kato Achenga. What should be done to curb the rising crime levels? That is our question tonight. Begin texting. I will sample those views later on in this broadcast. But for now, let's focus on what's also coming up on Channel 1 News Hour tonight.
Death and destruction. At least 75 killed, 7,000 others displaced as heavy rains continue to pound in the country. Police crime report shows levels of crime have increased by 7%. And saving our forests. Government to put in place caretaker team at the Kenya Forest Service as task force report indicts its officers recommending prosecution.
Welcome back. Channel 1 News Hour begins right now with me, Catherine Achenga. Our sign language interpreter this evening is Susan Dhuku. Let's now focus on what's making headlines. And now the level of crime in the country has increased by 7% as compared to last year. Now, a quarterly crime report released by the National Police Service reveals that the rate of dangerous drug cases has increased by 24%, followed by robbery cases at 23% and penal code offences at 10%. The report further shows that at least 33 police officers were killed countrywide in the first quarter of the year. Brenda Zedaradido gives us the details.
The number of crimes reported to police in 2018 increased by 7% to 21,263 from 19,815 in 2017, according to new data released by the National Police Service on Monday. According to the quarterly crime report, peddling of dangerous drugs was the leading crime reported between January and March 2018, with 332 cases recorded.
When we detect more drugs, to us it is positive. Like for example, this year, last year we trained more dogs in detection of drugs, and that is why even the case in Eldoret, you know, it was detected by our dogs, and therefore we are proud that we are detecting more drugs along the ports of entry, airports, and the port of Mombasa and any other ports of entry and the borders.
Other crimes frequently reported to the police in 2018 include offences against morality at 119, offences against persons at 339, stealing at 214, and other penal code offences at 162.
In January, if you compare January 2017 and January 2018, we had 15% increase. Come to February, it declined to 8.9% decrease compared to the previous year. And now come to March, it came to 1.6. So you can see a progressive decline in number of cases reported or crimes between January and February.
Additionally, 40 cases of homicide were reported in the first quarter of the year 2018. 49 cases of theft by servants and 12 offences involving police officers. Notably, in the period under review, 60 more cases of offence of procuring abortion were reported compared to last year, and 10 cases of concealing birth.
In our view, these crimes have more to do with standards of morality in the society, and therefore pose a serious challenge for the police, and calls for the society to devise methods and means of finding out how we can be able to deal with the weak fabric of immorality, moral standards within communities and societies, because these are offenses that are related to moral standings of the community.
A total of 33 officers were killed across the country. Of those, 15 perished in accidents, 16 died from gunshot wounds and grenade attacks, while suicide accounted for 2 deaths. The report was released hours after police foiled a robbery at a godown in Kamakis area of the Ruiru bypass. Police gunned down 3 suspected robbers, arrested 1 suspect, and recovered an AK-47 rifle during the incident. Brenda Zedaradido, Channel 1 News.
Well, that is a quarterly report by the National Police Service indicating that the level of crime has increased countrywide, and that is what's forming the basis of our interactive segment tonight. On our opinion poll question, we are asking you what should be done to curb the rising crime levels. The question is right there on your screen. The SMS line to respond is 22162. Let me know who you are and where you're texting me from. On social media, you can talk to us on Twitter at KBC Channel 1, my Twitter handle at Kato Achinga. Once again, what should be done to curb the rising crime levels? Give me your feedback. I will be sampling your responses later on in this program. But elsewhere, the government has revealed that the ongoing floods has claimed the lives of 75 people, displaced 7,000, while 18 others have been injured as the rains continue to cause havoc countrywide. The National Police Service says it is working closely with other agencies in ensuring the safety and security of flood victims. This comes as over 600 families have been displaced by floods in Migori County.
The effects of the raging floods continue to take their toll, with the government releasing the figures of the number of victims affected by the heavy rains. Police spokesman Charles Owino says they are working to ensure access and movement of families in affected regions, calling on those in flood-prone regions to cooperate with officers for their safety. This comes as Kitui leaders are appealing to the government to help retrieve bodies of 5 people who are believed to have drowned at Nziu River in Nuu, Mwingi sub-county, for nearly 2 weeks. They are calling for expert divers to be dispatched into the area.
I've come here to actually appeal to the government to do the necessary, mobilize its disaster unit so that they can come and help us to retrieve those bodies.
And in Migori, more than 600 families have been affected by floods in Nyora and Kabuto. The County Disaster Management Chief Officer Joshua Ngwala said over 200 houses have been destroyed, and the region is likely to record poor harvest due to the heavy downpour.
The situation is such that a rescue camp is not necessary to be set up as of the moment.
And 50 people whose farms were swept away by a landslide in Murang'a County have now been evacuated to a nearby polytechnic amid pleas of well-wishers to assist them with relief food and basic commodities.
We are going to work together with the government to see whether we can even have plans to relocate, whether we can be able to even get extra land for these people. Maybe they can be going to the farms, but I don't think it's habitable anymore for them to go back to their homes because their poses a bigger disaster than what we have already witnessed.
In Baringo County, over 300 families have been displaced after their houses were submerged by floods. Also affected are 5 schools, namely Sintan, Liropil, Ngambo, Longwean, and Ngambo, which will not reopen for the second term on Wednesday as scheduled.
Ile mashule yote yenye iko ngambo ile hakuna watoto ambao watafika. I am appealing to the Ministry of Education, especially now that mashule inafunguliwa, for them to do something faster. Leo na kesho wahakikisha kwamba kuna alternative.
Hali tuliama ni shule, hata hakuna kitanda, unalala tu chini na mablanketi sote zimeingia na maji, tulianika lakini maji tu nakuja kuchukua.
A similar situation is unfolding in Kirinyaga County, where 4 primary schools have also been submerged following the heavy rains. Farmers in the area have in the recent weeks lost over 10,000 acres of maize and beans crops due to extremely frosty weather.
And elsewhere, the government will put in place a caretaker management committee at the Kenya Forest Service following a damning report that implicates the Kenya Forest Service in the wanton destruction of the forest. The report by the Task Force on Forest Resources Management is also calling for the immediate arrest and prosecution of those behind what it terms as systemized corruption and abuse of office. Irene Muchomodim with details of the damning report.
After 2 months of gathering and compiling information on what ails the country's woodland, the 15-member task force tabled its final report. The bulk report paints a grim picture on the state of the country's forests, even as it accuses KFS, calling for a complete overhaul at the helm.
This will enable an immediate commencement of the administrative investigation process for the 16 suspended officers of KFS, among other urgent matters.
The management team will ensure that all the processes and recommendations made are put in place. And that management team is going to be in place at the shortest time possible.
It also faults KFS for issuing an award letter to millers in contravention of the law that requires timber licenses be issued to selected sawmillers. The Marion Kamau-led task force is also recommending the immediate investigation and prosecution of those behind the destruction.
We like politics, and we like our politicians, they are our leaders. That's why they are there. But for heaven's sake, lead us honestly. Lead us with the truth. Don't play games.
The task force further established that illegal logging of indigenous trees is a major threat to forests and rampant in the country's water towers, recommending a ban on cedar trees and its byproducts.
Forest zonation must be reviewed to establish a core conservation role surrounded by a multiple uses buffer zone.
Among other recommendations include removal of squatters from the forests through consultative processes that would involve stakeholders, KFS to issue timber license as per the Act and strictly adhere to the current Forests Act. Earlier, Deputy President William Ruto called for the implementation of recommendations made by the task force.
In the next 10 days, we hope to present this report and the implementation matrix to His Excellency the President so that we can get to hit the ground running.
The report coming before the lapse of a 90-day ban on logging and timber harvesting in public forests. With the country's forest cover way below the 10% constitutional requirement, it's now a wait-and-see situation on whether the caretaker management at the Kenya Forest Service will allow partial logging or come up with other measures that will ensure our forests are protected. Irene Mchuma Odim, Channel 1 in the county of Nairobi.
And now to some politics, where Kakamega Senator Cleophas Malala has challenged President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga to include youth in the newly formed Building Bridges Initiative advisory team that is aimed at promoting peace and cohesion in the country. Now, speaking at Parliament buildings, he proposed that the formation of a parallel youth committee be put in place to champion the healing and reconciliation agenda of the youth of this country.
On Sunday, President Uhuru Kenyatta and Orange Democratic Movement principal Raila Odinga named 16 advisors to steer national dialogue under the Building Bridges Initiative. They include Dr. Adam Solo, Senator Amos Wako, Ms. Florence Omose, Professor Said Mwanguni, James Matundura, Bishop Lawi Matthew, Maison Leshomo, Senator Mohamed Yusuf Haji, Rose Moseu, and Zakaya Sokoth. Now a section of leaders want the youth to be included in the team for national appeal. Led by Kakamega Senator Cleophas Malala, they say the youth have a role to play in championing the healing and reconciliation agenda of the country.
We call upon the two respected leaders to consider including youth in their team. And these will only be spearheaded by youthful representation in the steering committee.
Meanwhile, the call for a referendum to amend the constitution and set new terms for the presidency has sparked mixed reactions across the country. Funyula MP Wilberforce Mudenyo says the presidency should be rotational to level the playing field.
Hiyo 20% bado iko, lazima turekebishe hiyo 20%. Na njia pekee yake kurekebisha 20% ni mambo lazima twende referendum.
He was speaking in Samia constituency while issuing bursaries to needy students. And there was drama at a Nairobi hotel after suspected hired goons disrupted a media briefing convened by former Nairobi Central Business District Association chairperson Timothy Muriuki. Muriuki was roughed up by two burly men within and outside the hotel premises as photo and video journalists captured his ordeal. At one point, the men attempted to throw Muriuki into the hotel swimming pool, but abandoned the mission following pleas from onlookers. The push and shove spilled over to the streets where Muriuki ran to a nearby residential building for safety, with the attackers hot on his heels, claiming he was out to tarnish Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko's reputation.
Nairobi tycoon Francis Mboro has threatened to sue the Ministry of Education for over 6 billion shillings rent arrears for 2 schools accrued over 37 years. Now appearing before the Senate's Public Accounts and Investment Committee, Mboro, who claims ownership of the controversial 13-acre land on which Ruaraka Secondary School and Drive-In Primary Schools are built, asked senators to consider terminating the process of the government acquiring the land. 3 parliamentary committees are investigating ownership of the land, which the government has already budgeted 3 billion shillings for acquisition.
3 days after appearing before National Assembly's Land Committee, Nairobi tycoon Francis Mboro faced the Senate Public Accounts and Investment Committee over the controversial 13-acre land occupied by Ruaraka Secondary School and Drive-In Primary School. The businessman, armed with documents to prove ownership, accused the government of occupying his land for 37 years without paying rent. Mburu threatened to sue for rent arrears amounting to 6 billion shillings.
I'm taking matter to court for the rent, which is 6 billion shillings plus interest, because I'm finding this world is not fair to me. I would like also not to be looked at by public as if I have taken the property from the public. I want it to be looked that the government has been sitting on the whole of that property for the last 40 years without paying me. Compensation of 3.2 billion for the schools, which allegedly, and as you have, because you are aware, as you have seen, is really about a contention of whether this is land that was supposed to have been surrendered ordinarily after subdivision to the county of Nairobi for purposes of that school.
The management of both institutions claim ownership of the land, saying they have allotment letters given by the then Commissioner of Lands. However, the Office of Attorney General has already dismissed the allotment letters, maintaining such documents are not issued for private land. Mburu says he is ready to refund the 1.8 billion shillings paid to him so far by government and repossess the land which he claims is part of 96 acres owned by his company, Afrison Exports and Import Limited.
I've never gone to close that school. I've never demanded rent for that school for all that time. But when I hear people saying that not considering that I've been fair to the children, those are my children who have been going to that school, and that's why, I have an order in to demolish all buildings, and I can table it to illegal buildings, and I consider that school to be an illegal building.
We will be talking to the governor to find out why this school has to be bought by the state, yet it was built in 1984 by the state.
But senators demanded all former and current directors of the Afrison Exports and Imports Limited must appear before the committee for a comprehensive probe to ascertain ownership. The senators have in the meantime instructed government to halt payment of 3 billion shillings allocated for acquiring the land. Kevin Washira, Channel One News.
And now business in Kiambu was at a standstill for the better part of the day as irate residents blocked the roads, decrying the poor state of the roads. Now, the residents accused the county leadership of failing to implement their pre-election pledges to upgrade the 18-kilometer stretch of road that remains impassable. More details in the county highlights.
These were the scenes at Githunguri, Kiambu County. Residents were demanding the county leadership to repair the road. They accused the county leadership of using the road as a campaign tool and failing to deliver on their promises.
In Raleigh constituency, there is no part that has tarmac. So we are asking the president and the deputy president whether we are part of Kenya.
Elsewhere, Kijabe Mission Hospital conducted a free circumcision exercise at Naivasha Maximum Prison. Inmates underwent the voluntary cut as part of government efforts to contain the spread of HIV/AIDS among vulnerable groups.
So far, we have done 5 of them. We have a total of 8 to do. We had scheduled for 10. 2 of them have shied off.
Separately, education stakeholders in Taita Taveta County are warning a majority of girls from the region drop out of school owing to early pregnancies and early marriage. They each challenged the government to enforce the law to ensure they stayed in school.
Kuna shida ya wanaume wanyemelea na wananyemelea hata wakiwa hata darasa la 4, la 5, la 6.
In Kitui County, residents protested the alleged discrimination in issuance of county government tenders. They're demanding equal opportunities in procurement.
Let us work in consultation and let us put issues straight. The office of the governor, the office of Department of Ministry of Water, the minister in charge, and everybody.
In Laikipia County, the governor, Nderitu Muriithi, has warned county officials against creating bottlenecks in the ongoing county construction jobs.
We expect them to act quickly whenever somebody has finished a construction, for example, whether it's a road or building or whatever they were doing. We expect you to move with speed.
Finally, in Mombasa, Coast Water Services Board is urging residents to harvest rainwater. This follows an acute water shortage blamed on an electric fault.
Well, it's time for Channel 1 News Hour to take a short break. But before we do that, a quick reminder of our opinion poll question tonight, coming from a report that was released by the National Police Service showing that within this quarter, that is January, February, March, and April, the rate of crime in the country has gone up by 7%. And we are asking you, what should be done to curb the rising crime levels? What should be done to curb the rising crime levels? 22162 is the SMS line. Let me know who you are and where you're texting us from. Don't forget to leave me a brief comment on Twitter at KBC Channel 1, my Twitter handle at Katu Achenga. But before I take that break, I can sample a couple of your responses. I have this one from Duncan Disia. You say you're in Siaya County, and you're saying the government should increase the employment opportunities in the country, not deploy additional police officers. This one saying police should know their work because in the country there are many police officers and most of them are corrupt. We have this one from Gitonga. You say you're in Eastleigh here in Nairobi, and you're saying let's send the Kenya National Commission of Human Rights to arrest the criminals. So keep them coming. What do you think should be done to curb the rising crime levels in the country? 22162 is the SMS line. On Twitter at KBC Channel 1, my Twitter handle at Katu Achenga. Well, we'll take a short break, but when we come back, today is Monday, that means we have perspective. And tonight we will be focusing on the state of the nation, of course, coming at a time when President Uhuru Kenyatta is expected to on Wednesday address a joint sitting of Parliament and tell the country what his agenda is and what is some of the progress that we have achieved as a country when it comes to national cohesion. And that will be forming the basis of our discussion after this break. And I will be talking to the Member of Parliament from Mathare, Honorable Anthony Olwoch, and we're also expecting the Senator from Murang'a County, Honorable Irungu Kangata. So stay tuned after this break.
Every 4 minutes is a chance for you to win big with Mega Dollar. Just go to Lipa na M-Pesa, enter paybill number 295888, account name KBC, and amount from 10 shillings or more. Then select your 10 numbers from 1 to 80 and send to 29588. You can win up to 30 million shillings. Start playing now and win. Mega Dollar. Big winners every 4 minutes.
This week on KBC Channel 1.
Killed him! I killed him! I killed my son!
I came here to smack you across your face!
Yani umemunifanyia hivi?
Mimi?
Hey, wewe kitu gani mama Keda? Usijifanye mzuri sana. Na najua unipendi.
This is absolutely nonsense. It's important you get support from your family and before you go to support groups.
If I had met somebody at that time who encouraged me and told me, yes, look at me, I am fine, even you will be fine, it would have given me that much more psych to fight.
Shoro FM kwa ushirikiano na KBC Radio Taifa wanakuletea roadshow babu kubwa ndani ya Kiambu County tarehe 27 na 28 mwezi huu wa 4. Kutana na watangazaji wako wapendao wa Shoro FM, Nyox, Mwanamwede, Martin Kamade, Joseph Unjenga, KK na wengine wengi, pamoja na watangazaji wako wa Radio Taifa, Georges Waka, Boni Musambi, Junior Dread na wengine wengi. Ijumaa tarehe 27 tutazuru Githurai, Juja, Kenyatta Road, Gatondo, Igegania na Theka Theka. Nayo Jumamosi tarehe 28 mwezi wa 4 tutazuru Kikuyu Town, Kwambera, Githongori, Kiambu, Banana, Wangige hadi Limuru. Jitokeze, uzawadiwe, uburudike na utumbuize isindikizwe na wasanii tajika kama Joyce wa Mama, Ngaroya Junior, Smart wa Mam na Gadhiaka Wanjeri. Ni roadshow ya Shoro FM na KBC Radio Taifa kwa udhamini mkubwa wa Kamothe Housing Cooperative Society na Mtiba kutoka Safaricom. Twaweza.
So now you're a real estate agent.
The question is, why isn't she in her bed?
How would I know?
Tumekuja kupare kwa Yesu. Ulizia uambiwe, mambo za shetani yakudaiwe. Nasikia kuzitoka. Baba nichukue, nifunze, nataka kusoma. Kwa shule yako. Nichukue, nifunze, nataka kusoma. Kwa shule yako. Cheza de, dance de, ukiweka de kama Daude. Tunalala amka, Yesu anapepea. Tunalala amka, zidi kutumbea. Don't you see the way I get down, oh? No, ma, moto. When I'm singing praise to my God, oh. Arudi, wako niko salama.
Well, welcome back. You are watching Channel 1 News Hour. Of course, it's time for Perspective, but before that, a quick reminder of our opinion poll question. Tonight, we are asking you, what do you think should be done to curb the rise in crime levels in the country? 22162 is the SMS line. Let me know what you think. On Twitter, at KBC Channel 1, my Twitter handle, at Katu Achenga. But for now, let's focus our discussion on what is happening this week. We expect that President Uhuru Kenyatta on Wednesday will be issuing a State of the Nation address in Parliament, of course addressing a joint sitting of Parliament, and he will be speaking to what he's constitutionally mandated to do. He will be speaking to the national values and Article 10. What is the progress so far, and what is his vision for the country as he serves his second and final term as per the Constitution? And to help us digest more on this, I have with us the Member of Parliament for Mathare, that is Anthony Olwoch, who is with me here in studio. Of course, we were also expecting the Senator from Murang'a County, Irongo Kang'ata, but he has not been able to reach here in studio. But of course, we'll still get to discuss and find out more of what members of Parliament expect and what are some of the key issues that perhaps the President will be speaking on in his address on Wednesday. Thank you so much for coming to our studios.
Thank you.
Tell me about Wednesday, as we approach Wednesday. What is it that you expect as a Member of Parliament, the President, to address in the State of the Nation?
Thank you very much. First of all, I think the Constitution requires of the President that he must give a State of the Nation address every once a year. But this particular State of the Nation address is very special because it comes just a few months after the election, a very contested election that divided this country right from the middle. So I think the first thing that the people will be expecting of President Uhuru Kenyatta is what measures has he taken in place to put the country together. And I think, to be honest and to be fair to him, the President has taken steps, and I think together with His Excellency, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, they did come up with a memorandum. And I think in the memorandum, we've seen the number of issues that they think they ought to address, which I think should feature in this question. First of all is the election cycle and the electoral cycle of violence and injustice that comes every single 5 years. So I would expect that in the light of the resignation of the number of commissioners of IEBC and the remainder of the other commissioners, they should be telling us what is the way forward in IEBC, because there's a quagmire. We need to know if we have a by-election, what happens? If we have a referendum, what happens? If we need to do boundaries commission, what happens? And also, you know that the IEBC is mandated to carry out every 10 years or so boundaries review. So I expect that they will be addressing the electoral cycle of justice or injustice, or elections stolen or not stolen, and how do we move forward as a nation, because this is a cause of big concern.
Now, of course, national cohesion is one of the key issues that a majority of Kenyans will expect him to speak to, based on what we see. We saw the unity pact that he had with the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. Is your party leader expected to attend this State of the Nation address? Perhaps, are you aware?
The information that I have is that the Right Honorable is very likely to attend. It would be a good thing that he does. In the last Parliament, that's the 11th Parliament, when we were passing the 2/3 gender rule, the Right Honorable did attend, and I think with the camaraderie in body language we've seen between the President and His Excellency, the former Prime Minister, I expect that he will be there. The issue of cohesion is very central to this, because exclusivity or the lack of inclusivity in government has become a big issue, and I think also partly tied to the very hotly contested elections that we have. A big part of this nation feels left behind every electoral cycle. The last electoral cycle, the Right Honorable His Excellency Raila had close to 5 million votes, and we were told to move on. These people didn't move on, and there was another election which the same group of people, and probably more, felt was even more contested and probably stolen. So it's time we reconsider whether the system of governance that we have excludes people, so the issue about cohesion and inclusivity becomes very central.
So what then is your reaction as regards, the push for constitutional changes? Do you think that is where the answer lies in terms of cohesion?
Yes, I think cohesion is the key issue, because you look at the Bomas draft, and I think the biggest mistake we may have made, I think way back in 2010, was to abandon that system, the parliamentary system of government. The parliamentary system of government, not only does it allow Parliament to become more accountable and to keep the government in check, but I think it also brought with it the possibility that we could carry on more people on board in our system of governance, so that we don't have a winner take it all. If you're not a president or deputy president, then you're out in the cold for a couple of years.
Wasn't the evolution supposed to fix that?
Yes, it ought to have fixed that, and unfortunately, it has not. It has brought services closer to the people. But I think if you follow the debate about devolution in the last few days, you have also seen that devolution has its problems. Devolution has brought in issues of, did we bring corruption or did we devolve corruption closer to the people? Did we have a set of people or governance who, when they get to power, they rewarded more of people or sections of the wards that supported them and excluded people who didn't support them? So this issue of exclusion is not only at the national level, it is also at the county level. So if you ask me whether this was supposed to sort out the problem, that was the intention, but now we have to revisit and say it has not. There's still a big population and a big part of this country that feels our eyes are still glued on the executive, and I think that's the elephant in the house. Executive, this is where the big pie is. This is where we bake the national cake. This is where we decide who gets what portion of what at the county level, and everybody wants to be there, and it's time to revisit. Is it time we look and see whether we put in a system of government that excludes everybody, and we need to change it?
Even as you know, you perhaps advocate for a constitutional change. We've seen several attempts made since 2010 to, amend the constitution, including the Okoa Kenya that was pushed by NASA. But that once again brings us to the question: what makes you think that this time it will be successful, given we have seen several attempts that have not gone anywhere?
Okoa Kenya was a very good initiative. I was together with Paul Mwangi and a few other people as a member of that committee of experts. And I think one of the things we pushed in there was questions of inclusivity. The issue that I want us to look at was a question as to whether in government, both at the top levels, one of the proposals that was there is whether we should have more than 30% of any one community occupying positions in government, in civil service, in state agency, and other levels of government to the exclusion of others. So we came up with this proposal that no more than 30% of any one community at any given time should occupy any positions in government. The converse of that was that we need to reserve perhaps maybe 5% or some portion of appointments to marginalized community, so that both horizontally and vertically we are able to accommodate everybody in government.
But even as you know, you push for inclusion of the people from different communities. What about expertise? Don't you compromise on that?
Yes, it is better to set a benchmark. Let that community say we cannot meet this benchmark. But the moment you say from the very beginning that we've opened up this, we are the Jubilee Party, we won the elections, so every single appointment, it's either somebody from Central Province and then another half of it from Rift Valley with tokens to Northeastern Province, and the rest of the country watches through the window. I think we need to have a system where we say this is the affirmative action we are putting in place. It's a form of affirmative action.
Okay.
If you talk about 2/3 gender rule, it did not mean that there will always be women who will fill that third. And nobody said they need to fill that third. They could be the other 2/3. So I think that we need to have that conversation where we say, let's set a quota. Let's try it out for about 10, 15, 20 years. Once we've included and we've had a situation where the executive and the presidency and the deputy or the prime minister, if we get there, has gone round in at least 3, 4, 5, 6 big communities, then we can come back to the normalcy. Yeah.
Okay, I'm informed we're almost running out of time, but I'd want your reaction as regards the committee that was put in place, the 16-member team that was named yesterday by the president that will be pushing the national cohesion agenda. What do you make of it?
I think I like the fact that we had people who seem to be non-political. We have Zaki Zokot there, we have Eliudi Matthew. I think we have Senator Amos Wako, who is a former Attorney General Emeritus. We have people like Adam Zolo. They're experienced people, and I think I like the element of surprise. Everybody expected that you'd have people who are either politically connected or people who have been in this thing before. There are people who've been in the constitutional review process. So I like the fact that these people are mature, they represent the face of Kenya. Of course, there are those who feel that we could have done better in terms of gender. There are those who feel gender balance. There are those who feel we could have done better in terms of youth representation. But I'm happy with the list myself. I'm comfortable with it.
Okay. Yeah. I'm told our time is up, but I just want you to look into the camera and speak to the Kenyan people about what you think is the solution in terms of bringing national cohesion to this country.
Thank you. I think the thing that we must do as people and as a country is to get to the position where we say that this country is bigger than an individual. We have reached that point in history where we need to relook where did the rain start beating us in the question of governance, the question of inclusivity, issues to do with devolution, and issues to do with governance itself. I think the handshake has given us that window of opportunity where we need to look and see every single 5 years. People get to the point where we want to tear this country and bring it to the precipice. So I think this is an opportunity for us to change that, and we need to embrace it.
All right, thank you, Mheshimiwa. Unfortunately, our time is up, but we do appreciate you finding time to come to our studios this evening. Well, that is the Member of Parliament for Mathare constituency, Anthony Olwach, just putting into perspective what are some of the issues that perhaps he expects the President to address on Wednesday during the State of the Nation address, a joint sitting of Parliament, and of course highlighting the major issue, of course, is the issue of cohesion, and of course how do we ensure inclusivity as a country among also electoral reforms within our country. This is where we put a cap on perspective, but of course business news is up next, so stay tuned.
Nilikuwa nina watch show, alafu kuna ile namba special 10 zilipeanwa pale. Alafu baadaye nikatangaza kuwa mimi ndio mshindi. Naso laba mtaani niko na kiosk kangu pale. Yenye nimeshinda nda boost ile kiosk yangu iko kubwa kidogo na wasi mcheze. $100 ni ya ukweli.
Nawe pia cheza ushinde leo. Top up kwa paybill number 295888 uanzie sasa.
Welcome. It's time for the business news, and we begin with the rate of inflation, which appears to have slowed to the lowest level since January 2013 and has been influenced by low food prices on the back of improved food production due to good rains. For the third month in a row, Kenya's rate of inflation slowed, falling to 3.37% from 4.18% last month, helped by lower food and energy costs. As Nicholas Nduati narrates, the ban on logging led to notable increases in the cost of cooking fuels, particularly charcoal, that had a double-digit month-on-month increase.
Improved food supply and its low cost on account of good rains has helped the rate of inflation slow to a 5-year low of 3.73%. The Kenya National Bureau of Statistics that tracks prices in selected retail outlets in 25 data collection zones across Nairobi and 13 other urban centers says month-on-month food inflation reduced from 2.19% to 26 basis points this month, helped by lower prices of maize flour, milk and dania. There were increases in the cost of beef, peas and onions, but the higher prices were not big enough to offset decreases in the prices of other food items. The month-on-month inflation rate was also helped by lower fuel prices after the Energy Regulatory Commission reduced pump prices. Latest data from the Statistics Board indicates that this month, the costs of petrol, diesel and kerosene reduced by between 1 and 94 basis points that influenced the transport index to reduce by 16 basis points. The housing, water and fuels index rose 3.24% after the ban on logging saw the price of charcoal shoot through the roof. The data shows that charcoal prices recorded the highest increase of 16.87% this month, while there were also increases in the cost of electricity, cooking gas and rent by between 17 and 15 basis points.
And now Kenya is set to become the 4th country in the world to host a Microsoft Software Application Testing Center. The multi-billion shilling center, the first such facility in Africa, will be responsible for developing and testing cutting-edge technology for the Microsoft Corporation. Bambo Shofola, who heads the software engineering at the Microsoft, says the center would cement Kenya's position as the premier tech hub in Africa.
Microsoft has been here in Kenya for a while. And now we're just bringing engineering, part of engineering here with this testing facilities, the first step in that direction. But we look at the investments that, that companies are making here, the government is making, what we're doing in education, what we're doing in investing in infrastructure in this area has been very powerful and very inviting for us.
For years, Kenya has been positioning herself as a premier technology hub in Africa, pioneering cutting-edge technology like the mobile money platform M-Pesa. This has earned the country global recognition, with technology giants like Google, WhatsApp and Huawei, among others, establishing their regional bases here in Nairobi.
We looked first at trying to understand if the infrastructures and the governments were in the right place for us to be able to come in and invest for years, okay? And then we also looked to see, do we have the right pipeline of people that we can hire, engineers that we can hire, male, female, that we can hire to work with us over the multiple years ahead of us. And this was a prime ground for us.
The Microsoft Corporation is set to decorate Kenya's heart further with the setting up of a research and testing center here in Nairobi later this week, in conjunction with local IT service provider TechnoBrain.
It's a proof that Kenya is changing and leading the way in technology arena. And our graduates today here in Kenya, they are proving that they are as good as anywhere else in the world. And I'm sure that we're starting this project and we'll take it to the scale where we actually put Kenya on the world map for testing business.
The center will allow Windows Development Group engineering team to build and operate a specialized and secure test environment right here in Nairobi. The center will be an extension to Microsoft Redmond Windows Development Engineering Center, according to Bambo Shafola, Partner Director of Software Engineering at Microsoft.
There's a lot of work in ensuring that we engage with the right people here. We develop the right sets of product, sell them appropriately, have the right models that make sense in this region.
TechnoBrain Chief Manoj Shankar says the center will employ more than 1,000 people when fully operational.
In the coming 5 years, there's going to be a significant change in technology trends. We are talking about today artificial intelligence, machine learning. We're talking about digital world. And I think we are again very fortunate that due to our experience and the kind of work which we have done, we have an ambition to become a leading digital African company.
Kenya joins the League of China, Poland and India as the fourth country with such an outsourced center for Microsoft in the world. O'Brien Kimani for Business News Hour.
Now the Horn of Africa will be in the next 18 months. The joint infrastructure projects that should be undertaken to enhance trade, free movement of goods and persons, as well as reduce poverty. This is after the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, commissioned a comprehensive study to identify infrastructure and financing gaps in East Africa.
Intra-Africa trade is currently pegged at around 12%. Opening up borders for trade is, however, tipped to grow intra-Africa trade by more than 50% in less than a decade. Nonetheless, poor infrastructure is still Africa's greatest challenge.
Continentally, we require about 14 or 15 billion, US dollars worth of infrastructure, dollars of worth of spending per year if we have to have our infrastructure gap addressed.
The IGAD Infrastructure Master Plan is being undertaken to identify critical infrastructure gaps and suitable funding models in Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, South Sudan, Djibouti, Somalia and Eritrea, with a market size of 255 million people.
Promote what we call a borrowing entity. What that means is to quicken the process of infrastructure financing in the region. What that means is to have a team that then is mandated to do all the processes, and when everything is complete together as a block, then sign as a block, as opposed to piecemeal requirements, because that takes a very long time.
Key projects will include inter-country highways, railway, transboundary waterways, energy and ICT. Already, key projects identified include Kampala-Djibouti Corridor, Awassa-Moyale Road, and Addis-Djibouti railway line.
Once we identify the infrastructure in the region, we are looking into leverage on on the infrastructure so that we connect with our region, because this is going to help us to increase trade. So you realize that intra and intra-Africa trade is very low at the moment, and for us in Kenya we are looking at the expanded market. So if we can be able to link with them through the infrastructure, then it means that we can increase our trading, which means then that we can improve our economic benefits as a country.
The study is expected to kick off next month and will take 18 months before the final report is submitted to the IGAD Secretariat. Ronald Willie, News Hour Business.